got a digger. Guess who's driving? Elliot. There's one mob back on. There goes that mob running off. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Just sorting these mobs of sheep out for Swedes. Got a couple, one going back on and a couple coming off. Not going to let the other ones off just yet though, because yeah, got some exciting stuff to do this video. They've now been on for a full 24 hours, so we'll let them off again for the night. Put them back on some point tomorrow, mid-late morning maybe. Let them have a good feed of grass out there. And that should, fingers crossed, be them transition. Things certainly did get wet. They've done quite well eating those bulbs though. They're probably halfway through that break already, so although they haven't eaten much baleage, but that's alright. So I'd say come back on here at some point tomorrow. The next day they'll just about be due for a shift, which would only be 3 days, which like I said could be a possibility, but we won't set. Oh, look at that, a failed young grass paddock or so late. Always sow your grass early. Yeah, what was I saying? Sorry. Yeah, we won't go locking that in yet, because we do want to push them quite hard in the first break to teach them they can scallop the bulbs right out. We'll just see what the weather does. Today is supposed to be wet, the next few days are supposed to be not so bad. So fingers crossed that's the case, because if you can get them to learn on that first break to really eat into the bulb in the ground, you can, without putting any pressure on them and making them lose any weight, you can utilise your crop a whole lot better. There you go, the bees are about to run back on. These are the light ewes. I think we'll start calling them the bee mob. Hey, slip! Because they're not really that light anymore. They were. But I'm not really, I'm sick of calling them the light mob, so we'll call them the bee mob. On the way. Happy sheep for the night. One more time they're going to get run off and they should be fine. So those turtles, that first mob, I left them on for 24 hours this time. We just let them off before. And they seem quite happy. I guess that's probably a better way to do it. If you put them on for half a day and you're trying to transition them, you should probably put them on for a day the next time. So we'll go and have a look at this other mob and see how they're looking. Well, I would have to say that's right on the line of me wanting to let them off right now. What do they had on here now? 9-10 hours today. A couple of mils of rain forecast tonight. Don't know if you remember, I said in the last video that the first break it's quite crucial to get good weather. Now this bit of rain I didn't realise was coming, it wasn't in the forecast. It's only one day, and yeah, I think we'll let them off. Just, there's no point making a whole lot more mud in the first break. Once you got through the first 2 or 3 breaks, they've got plenty of room to come back to, and the mud doesn't get so bad. But if you make a mess of this first one, you'll wind up on a really bad foot to start with. So we might let them off for the night, and we'll put them back on in the morning. There we go. Right guys, let's go get a trailer. Just had to turn that drawbar back around the other way because this is no small trailer. And we went upside down for the bulky. To be fair, it's no small bulky either, but those bolts might not handle the pain of this one. Well, there's that job done. That is not a massive tractor, but not a small tractor, and that is a big trailer. The old 550 wide tyres on it, so yeah, she didn't make too much mud. Absolutely savage. But before we get into that, we've got to go shift some stock around, so let's go get that done. Well, there they go back on. Hopefully they can stay there for a fair while now. There's definitely 2 days worth of feed left there, but the way the weather's looking, it might only be 1. So we'll go sort these other mobs out. We better go check the ewe lambs, and then we'll get another fence up here, so that if they need shifted tomorrow, it's all set up ready to go. Wow, that's a rather promising outlook. So I haven't actually done much on telling you guys what things are. I've told you a lot about what we're doing, but haven't been very informative, sorry. I don't normally watch my videos, but I watched one a few months back and realised the video quality was pretty poor. So we've upgraded a few things and now we can go 4K, and the audio, I watched one last night, the audio is pretty poor too. So hopefully got a windproof microphone coming today, hopefully, fingers crossed, that might sort that out. But we'll have a look at these electric fences. So here we go, 3 reels, 3 wires. Not going to touch this because this has currently got a lot of power going through it. Here's one it'll focus on. So that wire there is a plastic, what is it? Poly wire. And it's got little strands of metal all through it. Focus camera, there you go. See the wee strands of metal? Now they carry very high voltage but very low amperage power, and we put them through these standards. So you can actually hear that ticking away there. That fence will have the best part of 9,000 volts going through it, and we just build fences with them. Takes a little bit of training though. So these hoggets, up until about 3 weeks ago, I'd never seen one of these fences. So we just fenced the corner of a paddock off, which would be maybe 5% of the area. So they're on the big side, and the idea is that they're going to go and they're going to touch the fence, but they're not held under any pressure behind it in a small area, which they're going to be when we get to the 1st of July. Yeah, so the power on the fence, it does hurt them, don't get me wrong, it does, but it's not going to do any damage. If I grab a hold of that wire right now, it's really going to hurt, but it's not going to do me any damage. The idea is just a way of holding them back. To put a fence up right here, permanent fence, would cost me, what's that, 100 metres, probably $1,200. And I don't always want a fence there, so we can do whatever we want with the paddocks. It's a lot of work, but we can chop paddocks in pieces, we can split them in half, we can split them in 10 pieces, we can split them in as many as we want, just depending on the amount of work we want to do. So they're a very handy tool and a very necessary thing for us over winter. But anyway, back to what we're here for. So this is only the 4th time I think these hoggets, or ewe lambs hoggets, they're hoggets now, have seen one of these fences, and we've got nothing on the other side. Often they'll just blow straight through when they're learning. The idea is they get a boot, you want them to bounce back, but sometimes when they don't know what it is, they go forward. But very promising looking. They've probably got another couple of days in here, maybe a day, maybe 2 days. So then they're going to that one, way through there. This is the neighbours here. This is their place here. Yeah, straight through that gully. Things have got quite wet. I'm not happy about this, but that is what it is. But anyway, they're looking pretty clean. So we're going to run their sheet back on, see what the weather does. We just had a nice wee shower come through then that probably had a mill in it. It didn't take very long, but we're just getting those, so hopefully it's not going to be too nasty. We're not going to get a big volume, hopefully. Running back on. They've made quite a mess around here overnight. I suspect they might have been trying to get back on, but yeah, they do enjoy these Swedes. They thoroughly enjoy them. Come on girls, cut that out. Cut that out. There we go. Hey, 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 hey. Forecast for the next few days does look really, really nice. So things will dry out nicely, hopefully. And man, they're in a hurry to come on. They weren't in much of a hurry to get off. Definitely better with bugs and things like that in cooler areas. We've had a bit of a struggle this season with the dry, and they do like moisture, but not too much. Very nearly a complete feed for sheep. So very nearly, that's why we put the baleage in. Don't worry, that is an empty drench drum there that I haven't pulled out yet, not a sheep. I need to do that. Yeah, here's the inside of one here. So I've never actually said too much to you about what a Swede actually is. For some reason, that one there's been eaten, but I haven't seen a sheep out. It's interesting. So they are a member of the brassica family. They're a cross between a turnip and a cabbage. I don't know when that was done, a long time ago I'm guessing. They are self-seeding, so it's not like they're a hybrid that can't reproduce. They're, what do you call it, they're their own plant now. We'll have a wee look at one. Which one should we pick? I've got about 1.5 million of them. There we go. So you got the top, there's the solar panels. This is what comes out of the ground and makes it grow. That weighs maybe 200 grams. Now that is probably where the nutrient value, the mineral value is in the plant, but it's also the most dangerous bit because of this bit here. has a thing called gluconates or glucosinates. Anyway, not an issue, but if you get really necky Swedes, you do have to be a wee bit mindful of that. But this fella here, this is the magic. They don't taste like a spud, but they're not completely dissimilar. That weighs, without the dirt there, 1.5 kilos, 2 kilos. So it's a decent sized Swede. Just the white flesh inside, yeah, not just a starchy mass, full of energy, full of water. Sheep don't drink water on Swedes because those are loaded with it. Yeah, quite a cool plant. They suit a cold climate. Definitely better with bugs and things like that in cooler areas. We've had a bit of a struggle this season with the dry, and they do like moisture, but not too much. Very nearly a complete feed for sheep. So very nearly, that's why we put the baleage in. Don't worry, that is an empty drench drum there that I haven't pulled out yet, not a sheep. Need to do that. Yeah, here's the inside of one here. Been split open by a tractor wheel. So that's what they look like inside. We call these a yellow flesh. Yellow flesh are definitely better than white, but it is quite white. Some of the bright white ones are pretty dull for the sheep. They don't like them very much. So quite hard, but the sheep just absolutely love it. As you can see there, all eating for the most part anyway. Love them. Now, I know some people get quite concerned about the level of mud we make, and hey, I'm not going to deny it, we make mud over winter, absolutely. This is 2/3 as bad as it ever gets though. It always looks worse when they're at the end of a break because there's no white there because they've eaten it all, but hey, then they're going to get shifted on. If it gets much worse than that, we're going to let them off into this paddock and feed them out some baleage because that's just better. But yeah, sheep love Swedes and they create another really, really good outcome too. And that is what happens in September. So we stock our farms very accordingly, and it does change a little bit year to year. We do vary things according to what we're carrying into winter, but we need to do this to make sure that we've got enough feed at lambing to make sure the wee lammies survive when they hit the ground. We all grass winded for 40 years. At the time, with farm finances the way they were, it had to be done. We couldn't afford to put the crops in. This is before my farming career, to be fair. This is one of the first changes I brought back to the place. Used to do this 50, 60 years ago. We stock our farms quite accordingly so that we can manage our grass all year round. If we run, say, 30% less sheep, we don't put the Swedes in, we can't control the grass over summer, and it's going to look like this grass in here. So this is wee shelter belt we put in a couple of years back. So there's some nice quality feed in there, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is just going to look like this, just rough. Now sheep can't survive on that. Unlike cattle that can survive on quite a low quality diet, sheep, especially when they're pregnant, need very high energy feed. They don't necessarily need that much of it, but they do need decent quality. Otherwise they lose weight. They're just constantly losing weight, and if you keep losing weight, eventually you die, so that's not good. We don't want that. Fat sheep are healthy sheep. So we have to run a certain number of sheep in order to be able to keep that quality up the whole year round. If we don't plant these, we either run out of feed and we have bad lamb survival, or we can't control that feed year round, and then the next year we're going to have bad lamb survival. Some people make it work in different climates, different areas, according to what they're doing. If they've got a lot of cattle, they can make it work. We don't really like running too many cattle here because those trees up there are the only place we've got to winter them. So this is the reason we do it. The whole premise of doing this, because it costs a lot of money, is to increase lamb survival at lambing time, which yes is a profit thing, but it's also a welfare thing. Doesn't matter what the profit side of it is, nobody wants to be going out in a lambing paddock and picking up heaps of dead lambs and biffing them in the hole or whatever else you have to do with them. It is one of the most demoralising things you ever come across. Slim. Yeah, Slim, get up. Slim, get up. And to take that even further, we do live right at the bottom of the South Island. That hill you can see in the distance, so when the finger comes away you'll see there's one there and one behind it. That is the highest point between there and Antarctica. There is nothing else. So yeah, to take that even further, the more feed we've got at lambing time the better, but that is exponentially so if we have bad weather. We can't control the weather. We try to lamb at a point where growth is meeting demand, grass growth is meeting demand, and that is the best thing we can do for the sheep. But ultimately, we have snowstorms at lambing time occasionally. We have really bad rainstorms occasionally as well. The more feed that we've got under the sheep's feet, the better. So sheep have wool on them, just a tiny little bit of wool, just 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks after shearing is enough to keep them warm. So we don't have to worry about shelter. We're putting these in, that's lambing time shelter, that's a different thing. But the more feed that the sheep have, the warmer they stay, because they've got this big jersey on all the time. So we need to keep that feed up to them. So once again, another reason for putting these Swedes in is so we can have enough feed at lambing time. If bad weather comes, that is going to bring exponentially better outcomes, as opposed to in good weather, than not having the feed there, because that's just going to be a disaster. These Taurus are currently got about 20, maybe 25 pound on them. Not leaving much of a mark, but we are sort of slipping around a wee bit, so I think I might stop at the workshop on the way home and get them down to their winter pressure of 10. So these girls here stayed on overnight. They went on last night, but they were off yesterday when we got the bigger amount of rain, so I think that's made a difference there, but they're certainly looking a lot happier. So they've had one run off now, so they were on, let me think, they get let off yesterday morning and that was their first time coming off. I'm going to leave them on today. We'll run them off at the end of the day. They'll still get their night off Swedes for the transition. They worked quite well with the Tudis yesterday. Leaving them on for the whole day, let them off last night, and then as you saw we just put them back on before. They can stay there now. So yeah, they're looking very happy there actually. So essentially now they've had 24 hours on here, which is probably more like 30. 2 half days, but they're a bit more than half. How's that panning out? I reckon they're going to get a comfortable 4 days in there. They've hardly touched the baleage in the feeder. Yeah, that's quite nice to come see. So they can stay there for the day, let them off tonight, back onto that other paddock, and tomorrow morning, some point, probably not too early, give them plenty of time on grass, they can go back on and stay there. Fingers crossed. That's better. Beast mode is now activated. 10 psi. Right, let's go try shift some rock. That's that one there. Just got to come up here and start this one up, let it warm up, get that cleaning bucket off, get the rock one on. That's a pretty good load there. Those trailers are absolutely massive, and where we've got to go is quite wet, so we won't take too many risks. That trailer's also got extended sides on it for lifting beat, so they're not full rock sides. Those the rock sides are only about 2/3 of the way up, so if you overfill it too much I might break it, and I don't want to do that because I know the guy I've hired it off and I want to be able to hire it again. So looking back in there, she's not that overly full, but we've got to be 12 tonne there. We'll just see how this load goes. Well, there's the first load done. It was about 13 minutes from when I started the tractor to when I was dumped. So fingers crossed we can be about half an hour around the trip, which is better than last time I was doing this. I was using the front end loader to load the trailer, and I hate doing that because it's so hard on them. But we were about half an hour up and back, maybe a little bit less, and about half an hour to load. So digger's only taking about 5 minutes to load, which is massive time saving and a massive wear and tear saving on the tractor. Right, so we've got four loads done. Now we've got to take this one back to the vets. She's supposed to be having a drain removed, but she got her cone off last night, and after me ringing to book a time at the vets today, come up to let her out, give her drugs, and hello, the drain is gone. So we'll take her over, they can have a look, make sure it's all right. Hopefully it is, and then I think it's another 10 days she goes back to get the stitches taken out. Well, they're actually looking quite settled on there. Still going to let them off because transition, we don't want upset gutses, but that is very, very promising. They're slowly making their way through the baleage, haven't eaten a lot, but it has gone down, so that's good. They all look pretty full. Wouldn't say completely, but pretty good. We'll let them off. Now I know I said I wanted to keep this paddock behind us good because it's got a lot of grass on it, it's going to keep growing, but for the night tonight we are going to have to let these girls onto here because that other paddock's quite dirty. Just the feed's been muddied up, and still feed there, but they're not going to eat it. And putting them on a grass paddock that they're not going to eat is not going to help with their transition. So, yeah, not ideal, but not the end of the world either. There they go. Right there is that ram. that I need to catch and find out whose is. I've got a pretty good idea. Hasn't done any harm being in here at this time of year, there's no point getting worried about it. We'll just make sure he doesn't stay on crop, because rams don't, I don't know. Some people winter their rams on crop. I'm not a fan of the idea. They're worth a lot of money. They beat the crap out of themselves, and rams are soft. Ewes are actually far harder than rams when it comes to putting up with weather and other things, and feed shortages, well, feed pinches I should say, than rams are. So yeah, I've got a fair idea whose that ram is, and I think they'll appreciate it not being left on crop with my ewes, which will outcompete it like crazy and have it go backwards like crazy. So we'll get it. Anyway, that's all them off. We'll shut the gate so they can't go back on there tonight and upset their transition. They're going to be very, very full sheep tomorrow. They're going to really appreciate this feed overnight, I hope. Hope they say thank you. Right guys, for the second time in a row, albeit 4 days apart, I am feeding cattle in the dark. So let's see how good these lights are. Lift that up a bit. Light bar. Woo! Work lights. That ain't bad. Right, let's get some colours in these feeders. I should probably hyperlapse this because this video is long enough as it is. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, we will see you next time when it will be a little bit of crop, just this much crop, and the rest of it will be tractors and rock trailers and diggers and all that exciting stuff. So cheers guys.